There's something interesting happening right now in mock draft season, and I want to know if you've noticed it too. Every time a new mock drops and the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock at pick 20, one name keeps popping up over and over again: Keldrick Faulk. And the reaction from Cowboys Nation has been all over the place. Some fans see the name and immediately shut it down. Others are starting to lean into it. So let me ask you straight up, when you hear Keldrick Faulk at 20, is your first reaction yes or no? I want you to be honest. Drop it in the comments right now. Yes or no? Because here's the thing. This isn't just one random mock drafter throwing his name out there. We're seeing respected draft analysts consistently connect Faulk to Dallas. That's not by accident. When multiple evaluators who grind tape for a living start circling the same name to the same team, it usually means there's something about that fit that makes sense. And yet, within Cowboy circles, there's already this wave of pushback forming, almost like once a few people labeled him as not explosive enough or not a true pass rush threat, that label stuck. And that's where I want to slow this conversation down. Draft season can turn into groupthink fast. One narrative catches fire, and suddenly it becomes accepted fact. But if we're being real, how many fans actually turned on the film before forming that opinion? How many looked at the context of what he was asked to do versus just glancing at sack totals? Because if you only look at raw numbers without understanding the role, you're missing half the story. Now let's frame this properly. The Cowboys are picking at 20. That's not top 5. That's not top 10. You're not shopping in the perfect prospect aisle. At 20, every single player on the board is going to have something you wish was cleaner. Maybe it's athletic testing, maybe it's polish, maybe it's production consistency. Nobody sitting there is flawless. So the real question becomes this: what traits translate and what fits what Dallas is building? That's why Faulk keeps coming up. He's not being mocked to Dallas because someone spun a wheel. He's being mocked there because evaluators see a body type, a skill set, and a potential schematic fit that lines up with what this defense could need. And before you immediately compare him to a Micah-level game wrecker, pump the brakes for a second. There's only one of those. Every edge rusher coming into the league isn't supposed to be a 15-sack rookie. That's not realistic. The league isn't full of clones. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of arguing off Twitter clips and narratives, we're going to talk through what Faulk actually brings to the table, what he did at Auburn, how he was used, and more importantly, how that usage affects how you evaluate him. But before we go deeper, if you're the type of fan who actually wants real draft conversations instead of surface-level takes, this is the time. To make sure you're subscribed, we're pushing towards 17,000 subscribers, and draft season is where this channel levels up. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss these breakdowns, and like the video if you're ready to actually dig into this instead of just reacting to headlines. Now let's talk about the film, because once you turn that on, the conversation starts to shift. When you turn on the Auburn tape, the first thing that jumps out is not some flashy spin move or a bend around the corner that makes you jump out of your seat. What jumps out is the frame, 6'6", around 285 pounds. That's not common. That's not your typical lightweight edge just trying to win with speed. That's a grown man body at a very young age. And when you see someone that size move the way he moves, you start to understand why NFL evaluators are intrigued. Now let's address the elephant in the room: the sack numbers. In one season, he puts up strong production. Then the following year, the sack totals dip. And that's where a lot of fans stop the evaluation. 3 sacks? Not enough. 7 sacks? Decent, but not elite. End of story. But here's the problem with that approach. It ignores role. Faulk wasn't just lining up wide every snap and being told to pin his ears back and chase the quarterback. Auburn moved him all over the defensive front. He played edge, he played inside. He was asked to two-gap, he was asked to hold the point of attack. He wasn't living in a system built purely to inflate pass rush numbers. That matters. When you look deeper, you see impact plays beyond just sacks. Run disruptions, tackles for loss, true solo tackles near or behind the line of scrimmage. And here's something that should grab your attention. He's doing this at 19, 20 years old. He's not some 24-year-old finished product. He's still physically maturing. That changes the projection. There are snaps where you see him stack a tackle with those long arms, lock out, read the play, then shed and close. That's grown man strength. There are reps where he lines up inside and doesn't get washed out. That's play strength you can build on. And when you see him standing up off the edge in certain looks, you can actually see the athletic upside flash. It's there. It just wasn't the centerpiece of his role. And this is where evaluation gets tricky. If you're looking for a pure speed merchant, someone who wins with ankle flexion and just lives in the backfield, that wasn't always his assignment. So when fans say, well, his pass rush win rate isn't elite, the next question should be, what was he asked to do on those reps? Was he told to attack, or was he told to control and contain? Because those are two very different jobs. This is why I want to ask you developmental upside. You don't put a 6'6", 285-pound defender with movement skills in the first-round conversation by accident. Now, the bigger question becomes this. Does that skill set actually align with what Dallas needs right now? Because fit is everything. And that's where this conversation gets even more interesting. Now, this is where the conversation shifts from, is he good, to does he fit? Because that's what really matters at pick 20. If the Cowboys were still built strictly around wide alignments and pure upfield pressure every single snap, then maybe you lean toward a lighter edge who lives off speed. But defenses evolve. Personnel changes. Front structures shift. And when you start looking at what Dallas could prioritize along the defensive line, setting the edge and controlling the run becomes just as important as chasing sacks. Let's be honest about something. How many times have we watched this team struggle when they can't hold up at the point of attack? How many playoff exits included moments where the run game dictated the tempo? You can't just be a highlight reel defense. You have to be structurally sound. That's where someone like Falk starts making sense. He already plays with the kind of strength that translates. He's shown he can stack and shed. He's shown he can play inside and outside. That versatility gives a defensive coordinator options. And options matter. Because now you're not drafting a one-dimensional specialist. You're drafting a piece you can move around. Look at the current defensive front situation. There's uncertainty. There are roles that may shift. There are contracts that aren't guaranteed to extend long-term. And even if certain players are back, depth and long-term planning are part of first-round thinking. You're not drafting for just this season. You're drafting for the next 4 or 5 years. And here's the part fans don't always love to hear. Not every first-round edge is supposed to walk in and give you 14 sacks. Sometimes the value is in stabilizing the front, forcing second and long collapsing pockets even if you don't get the sack, and making the defense harder to move against. Let me ask you this. If Falk is on the board at 20 and the flashy top-tier speed rushers are already gone, are you pulling the trigger? Or are you reaching for a name just because it feels more exciting? Be honest. If he's there and the board falls a certain way, do you trust the traits or do you chase the hype? Because at this point in the draft, you're picking between strengths and weaknesses. Every prospect left will have them. The lighter guys might win, quicker off the edge but struggle against NFL tackles in the run game. The bigger, more versatile guys might need refinement as pass rushers but give you immediate edge control. And here's the quiet part. Coaches love reliability. They love guys who execute assignments. If you're running different fronts, if you're asking your edges to reduce inside, if you're disguising looks, you need someone who can handle that responsibility. Falk has already done that in college. That doesn't mean he's guaranteed to be the pick. It doesn't mean he's a perfect prospect, but it does mean the idea of him at 20 isn't crazy, it's logical. If you appreciate realistic draft conversations instead of fantasy scenarios where every pick is a Pro Bowler, hit that like button. And if you want more deep dives like this, as we push towards 17,000 subscribers, make sure you're subscribed right now. Draft season is where smart teams separate themselves and smart fans pay attention. Now we've talked perception, we've talked film, we've talked fit, but the final piece of this puzzle is ceiling versus expectation. And that's where this debate really comes down to. Here's what this really comes down to. Ceiling versus expectation. Some of the resistance around Keldrick Falk doesn't actually come from what he is. It comes from what fans want him to be. Everybody is searching for the next Micah, the next Myles Garrett, the next TJ Watt, but those guys are rare for a reason. They don't grow on trees. At pick 20, when you're drafting in that range, you're usually choosing between high-level traits and incomplete polish. So let's be honest about Falk's risk. The pass rush bag isn't fully developed. There are reps where you want more urgency off the snap. There are stretches where the pressure doesn't consistently convert into sacks. If you're drafting him, you're betting on growth. That's real. But now let's talk about the other side. He's 20 years old. He already has NFL size. He already plays with legitimate strength. He already shows the ability to line up across the defensive front. You cannot teach 6'6" with that kind of length. You cannot manufacture that frame. What you can coach is counters. What you can develop is hand usage. What you can refine is timing and sequencing. That's where projection matters. At 20, you're not drafting a finished product. You're drafting someone who can become more than he is right now. And if the floor is a strong edge setter who helps your run defense from day one, that's not a bad floor. If the ceiling becomes a more complete defensive end who gives you 8 to 10 sacks while still dominating against the run, that's tremendous value at pick 20. Now let me throw this at you. Is the hesitation around Falk really about his game, or is it about unrealistic expectations of what a first-round edge should look like? Because sometimes we fall in love with the idea of a prospect more than the reality of team building. If he ends up being a consistent physical presence who stabilizes the defensive line and grows into a more disruptive pass rusher, that's a win. It might not be flashy in year one, it might not break highlight reels immediately, but championships are built on players who do their jobs at a high level. So here's your final vote. Is Keldrick Falk underrated, overrated, or just misunderstood? Drop one of those three in the comments. I want to see where Cowboys Nation really stands. And if you've made it this far, that tells me you care about real football conversations. Help this channel reach 17,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button right now. Like the video if you want more prospect breakdowns that go beyond the surface. Draft season is where the foundation for the next run is built, and we're going to keep breaking it all down the right way.